Hi everybody, my name's Charlie McArthur from Charles McArthur Coaching and Consulting. I'm a life coach and a mindset coach that specifically works with men. One of the most common issues that I help blokes with is how to control anger. Now, anger is a real emotion, let's not deny that, but it is the most damaging emotion that's going around. It's the most destructive. You know, when you lose your shit, at very worst, you could kill someone, you could end up in jail. 10 seconds of rage can ruin your life if you haven't got it in check. And particularly in this country these days, even just yelling at your partner is considered domestic violence these days. You need to have a really good grip on and really good control on your emotions. And what I've found after working with guys for a long time now, the guys that tend to get angry, there tends to be three things that are at play that we need to address in totally resolving this completely. And the first of those three things is that a lot of these guys that I work with were exposed to anger at some stage earlier in life. You know, you might have grown up in a house where mum and dad used to argue all the time, or dad used to lose his shit. That's quite common. You know, sometimes people grow up and ended up picking up angry behaviours, you know, in their teenage years by hanging around, you know, unruly gangs and stuff. You know, it's somewhere you're exposed to, you know, the habit of losing your cool. And if you're around that sort of environment regularly, there's a very good chance that you're going to be just like that as well. Okay. Second thing that I've noticed in guys that get angry, there's not they just don't have some productive thinking patterns going on. I call it stinking thinking. You know, one aspect of stinking thinking is overthinking. Because when you overthink things, problems that are this big end up being this big. And that can sometimes send you over the edge. So stinking thinking, you know, stops you keeping some perspective on how big the issue is. And of course, the other thing was these guys that I think tend to get angry a lot aren't the most expressive guys. They have trouble getting out how they feel sometimes. And that's not easy for everybody. And so all of these three problems, they lead on to other problems. So for example, if you're the person that's been exposed to anger a lot as a kid, well, you're going to have a tendency to lose your cool. If you're the overthinker, okay, as I said, everything gets more intense. And then if you're someone that has trouble expressing themselves, well, what happens there is you zip it up. You can't express yourself. And then pressure builds and it builds. And so somewhere in there, we're going to need some pressure releases. Okay. So when you're losing your cool, things are pretty intense and you're not talking up and expressing yourself, we're going to have problems. So they're the three things that we need to tackle. So how do we go about that? If you're the hothead, first thing we need to do, and it's the first thing we kind of cover in this Composure Program, is to chill you out and address and get you to be a cool, calm and collected man. Okay? So we want to help you chill out. Alright, now if you're the overthinker or you've got stinking thinking, you know, we need some world-class thinking. And what we do on the Composure Program is give you some really good ways to have healthy thinking. Okay? Things get a lot better. And of course, if you're the one that's having trouble expressing yourself, what you need to address that is some basic skills in communication. Okay? And that'll change everything. So by addressing these three problems, everything changes. You maintain your composure, you change from being a reactor into a responder, you turn into a cool, calm and collected man, you turn into a guy that takes in what's happened, thinks about things, makes an assessment before they speak. Because right now, if you're someone that loses it, it's probably upset, bang, action. You're reactive. But we need to change to get to the point where you are responsive. A responsive person takes the time to assess the situation and then decide the course of action they want to do. And that's far cooler. You know, a great quote that I read once said, you know, good men don't have attitude, they have standards. And so what we're talking about in this program of composure is how to raise your standards that you ask of yourself. Let's just talk about it in a little bit more detail. Now, if we go down to that bottom section, where we need to be a cool, calm and collected man, Okay, the first thing we need to do there is really start to realise that most of these upsets come from unmet expectations. You're expecting something to happen, it wasn't delivered, and you get angry. Okay, sometimes you might have been expecting peace and quiet, and that wasn't delivered, and that what might have been that got you angry. But essentially, pretty much any sort of anger, there's an expectation. If it's not met, that's potentially where it could go. So the first part of this program, we get you to check some of those expectations, because often that's what's out of whack. Now, if you've got high expectations all the time, expect to be disappointed. And if you've got lower expectations, you can probably expect to be pleasantly surprised more often. Okay? Now, in the second part, what we do is we help you to choose beliefs that work. Because if you're someone that loses your shit regularly, the reality is you've got a belief in your head that it's okay to do that. Okay? You've got a belief in your head that in a certain context, if that happens, well, now I can lose my shit. And it might be someone telling you to get fucked. It might be someone insulting you. It might be someone staring you in the face, yelling at you. But whatever the reason is, there's some criteria that allows the gates to open, the gates of rage I call them, and out comes the nasty monster. Okay? So, if you've got a belief that sort of, I believe I'm a bit of a hothead, I'm here to tell you, that's not helping the cause. Okay? So we need to choose beliefs that are going to work for you. And in helping you become a cool, calm and collected man, we get you to run through my 5-second method, which is a 10-day exercise where I get you to go out, do some certain things, but that'll fundamentally change you from being a reactor into a responder. And this is really where you start to feel the change come on. The first thing, we're actually sort of working this backwards. We're going to deal with the anger and the one that's raging out first, and then we're going to go to the stinking thinking, because there's no point if you get yourself under control. If you're not thinking about things correctly, you'll probably end up exploding again. So let's take a closer look at the stinking thinking. Now, one of the first things we need to know when we're not thinking as well as we could, one of the biggest common causes of that is negative self-talk. And what I mean by that is the stuff that you say to yourself that's not good about yourself. I'm no good, or I'm not that smart, or I'm not good at this. Whenever you talk yourself down, you're fundamentally doing yourself a disservice. Because whatever story you tell yourself about yourself, that's the program that you're going to run through your brain. Now, if you bought a brand new computer and you found some disk, if it still takes disks these days, but if you found some random disk somewhere, would you put it straight into your computer? It might have a virus, okay? And negative self-talk is like a virus, okay? And I'll get into more detail about that. But essentially with negative self-talk, we help you to clean that up, okay? Another important part of good thinking is understanding the mind-body loop. Now what I mean by that is, what we're talking about here is your nervous system, okay? It's not a mental, when we say a mental issue or a mental health is not just your brain. Mental health means your whole nervous system. So I'm talking your brain, your spine, and all the nerves that run down through all of your body. Because it's your nervous system which is responsible for how you think and how you feel. So if we're going to tackle anger, we need to tackle it from a feelings point of view. Now if you feel angry, well, we need to be able to tackle that. There's no point just dealing with thoughts. We need to look at the whole nervous system, because as I said, it's your nervous system which is responsible for how you think and how you feel. And by going through this program, you're going to get very, very good on how to control your nervous system. Okay? And then to clean up, the last part of the stinking thinking section is learning the ultimate skill of reframing. And that's by having the skill to look at something that might initially seem pretty bad and look at it from a different angle and being able to frame it up in a way that that's actually a good thing. Because when you can reframe anything that's bad, you remove bad things from your life and you live a happier life, which means you're less likely to get angry. Now, as far as communication skills, the number one communication skill that I think is missing with most people these days is some understanding about rapport. What is rapport? When I ask some people, I don't know, it's liking each other, isn't it? No. Rapport is a a connection that you have with anyone at any particular moment in time. Rapport can last for 3 seconds, it can last for 3 minutes or 3 hours. But rapport is something that you purposefully get into with typically your partner to make sure that you're in each other's space and you're both on the same channel. Now, if you're part of a couple that's slowly been drifting apart because you haven't been getting into rapport regularly. When you first met, you would have been getting into rapport regularly, a few times a day, a couple of times a night. But as we get past that honeymoon period, we stop getting into rapport with each other. So I'm going to cover all about rapport, how to recognize it, what it is, how to get it, if you lose it, how to get it back. Because if you're going to resolve any sort of issues with anybody, you need to be in rapport. You need to be able to recognize it, and when you can recognize it and use it and know where you're at within a conversation, you're far more likely to get agreement. Now, as far as communication skills, one of the biggest turn-offs for a lot of people is the tone that people use. Because tone communicates so much. Body language does as well, and of course your words do. But tonality, a lot of people don't stop and ponder how powerful tonality is. And of course, flexibility is something else we need to continually grow within ourselves, so that if something goes to bowl us over, well, we can dodge that and flex it and deal with things that come in our path. And then finally, to finish off the Composure Program, we're going to show you how to avoid silly assumptions. And people do it all the time, right? Now, there's a difference between what you notice, which you do with your senses, and the meaning that you give to what you notice, which is you do with your imagination. And how many arguments have ever been started or fights have been started because you're looking at me or whatever. People have seen something, they've perceived it the wrong way, and that's led to an explosion or an outburst of anger. So we're going to make you very, very clear on what it is that you're noticing and whether or not you're giving meaning to what you've noticed. Because until you check, all you are as an observer observing. You don't know. And so we need to get back to reality and realize that if we see something strange, until we check, we really don't know. So let's not make any assumptions. Okay, so that is a basic structure of the Composure Program. And getting through that program, you're looking at about 8 weeks. But you will come out of that more skilled, more flexible, better communicator, and you're learning how to choose beliefs that work for you. That will impact the rest of your life because you'll look at other areas where you've got limiting beliefs and replace them with enabling beliefs. So not only will this chill you out and give you the composure that you probably long wanted, this will actually help in all areas of your life. So give it some consideration. My name is Charlie McArthur from Charles McArthur Coaching and Consulting. That's a quick overview of the Composure Program that's kicking off here in 2022. Hope to see you on it. If you've been dealing with anger for a long time, it's definitely worth giving it a go. Take care, look after yourself, all the best.